The desert sun shimmered like a sheet of glass over the city of Mesa, Arizona. Beneath that blazing sky, a modest gray SUV turned into the parking lot of Empire Motors, a luxury dealership famous for its exclusivity. The vehicles parked out front looked like polished jewels, chrome reflections, deep blazes, engines humming softly under the heat. Inside that plain SUV sat Malik Johnson, the man who secretly owned it all. He didn't look the part. That was the point. A simple hoodie, faded jeans, worn sneakers, nothing about him screamed money or influence. He'd built his fortune in quiet ways, investments, partnerships, things no one in this place even knew existed. Empire Motors was one of his newest acquisitions, purchased under an alias through his private firm. Today, he was here not as the owner, but as an unknown customer. He wanted to see who deserved to stay. Malik stepped out, feeling the dry warmth on his skin. The glass doors gleamed ahead. He could already see a few employees standing near the reception desk, laughing, scrolling on their phones, talking about commissions. Not one of them looked up when he entered. The blast of air conditioning hit him first, cool and sterile. The air smelled like leather polish and money. For a brief moment, the laughter faded. Heads turned. Eyes scanned him, from hoodie to sneakers. And then the sound returned. Forced politeness, layered with quiet judgment. A woman in her late 40s approached from behind the front desk, clipboard in hand, voice sharp with authority. "Excuse me," she said. The kind of tone used for strangers who didn't fit the place. "Can I help you?" Malik smiled slightly, just looking around. Her lips tightened. Of course. But her eyes said, "You can't afford this." He wandered through the showroom, polished cars gleaming under the fluorescent light, while she followed a few steps behind, pretending to rearrange papers. "You looking for something specific?" she asked. "Something reliable," Malik said casually. "Something that lasts." A reply came quick, crisp. "Our inventory starts at around $200,000. These aren't everyday cars." He chuckled softly. "Maybe I'm not an everyday buyer." Her expression didn't change. She adjusted her blazer. "Well, perhaps I could recommend something more appropriate." Malik tilted his head. "More appropriate. Something pre-owned, maybe. We can direct you to one of our sister dealerships." The words were wrapped in fake courtesy, but the meaning was raw. He smiled again, polite, patient, the kind of smile that hides fire. "Sure," he said. "I'd like to see what you recommend." She left briefly, muttering to an assistant near the office door. A few salesmen were smirking, one whispering, "He's wasting her time." Malik pretended not to notice. He walked to a gleaming silver coupe near the window, ran a finger along the polished handle. The reflection showed a man, calm and still, one who had been through much worse than condescension. The manager, whose name tag read Carla, returned, holding a printout. "These," she said, offering the paper like a teacher handing back a poor grade, "are within reach. Good mileage, dependable, more practical." He glanced at the list. Used sedans, older SUVs, hybrid hatchbacks. Nothing from this showroom. "Practical," he repeated quietly. "I see." Carla folded her arms, clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. "You understand, of course. Prestige vehicles require certain qualifications." He smiled faintly. Qualifications, right. Their polished smiles, their practiced eyes. He could see how quickly they measured people, how easily they mistook appearance for worth. "I'd like to speak to the owner," Malik said suddenly. Carla blinked. "The owner? That's right. I'm afraid that won't be possible. The owner doesn't meet with walk-ins." "Oh, I think they'll make time for me," Malik said, calmly, pulling out his phone. "Don't worry, I'll give them a call." Carla frowned. "Sir, That really isn't necessary. Malik lifted the phone to his ear. Hey, it's me. I'm at Empire Motors. Tell the team I'll need a quick meeting. Yes. They'll understand when they see me. He ended the call and put his phone away, looking at her evenly. They'll be here soon, he said softly. The employees exchanged glances. Confusion rippled through the room. Carla's confidence wavered, a tremor in her voice. Who did you just call? Malik smiled gently. Someone who knows who I am. The doors opened a few minutes later. A tall man in a tailored navy suit stepped in, confident stride, clipboard in hand. His tone was respectful, but warm. Mr. Johnson, he said, shaking Malik's hand. I wasn't expecting you today. Malik's smile returned, calm and sharp as glass. Just a surprise visit. Carla froze, clipboard clutched tighter. Wait, Mr. Johnson? The suited man turned to her. Carla, you've met our new owner, I see. The silence that followed could have shattered the glass. Her face went pale, her lips parted, but no words came out. The entire staff stopped pretending to work. They stood frozen, guilty, small, and suddenly aware of their reflection in the glossy showroom floor. Malik looked at her kindly, but his words landed like truth itself. I came here to see how my team treats strangers, he said softly. And now I know. Carla's voice broke. Mr. Johnson, I didn't realize. He raised a hand gently. That's the problem, Carla. You didn't need to realize who I was to treat me with respect. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. The staff said nothing. The silence was its own punishment. Malik glanced toward the conference room. Gather everyone, he said quietly. We're going to have a talk. And when he turned, the air in the dealership changed. No more laughter. No more assumptions. Just the sound of truth arriving, steady, calm, and in control. The glass-walled conference room sat at the far end of the dealership, clean, modern, and quiet. Usually, it hosted training sessions and sales celebrations. Today, it felt more like a mirror, reflecting tension back at everyone inside. Malik Johnson stood at the head of the long polished table, his hoodie sleeves rolled to his elbows. The same man they'd dismissed minutes ago now commanded the entire room without raising his voice. Across from him sat Carla, pale, stiff, twisting her fingers around her pen. To her left, the younger salesman who had smirked earlier. The ones who thought they'd been clever now avoided eye contact. A few junior employees lingered by the glass wall, pretending to take notes, but clearly shaken. Malik's calm voice cut through the silence. Does anyone here know why I came today? No one answered. He looked around slowly, giving them all time to think. I didn't announce my visit. I didn't arrive with a suit or a car that cost more than your salary. I didn't bring security. I just walked in, like anyone else could. And yet, he gestured toward Carla. I was told what I could not afford. Carla swallowed hard. Mr. Johnson, He raised a hand gently. I'm not here to embarrass you, Carla. I'm here to ask why. She hesitated, glancing at her coworkers for support that wasn't coming. I made an assumption. Based on appearance. It was wrong. Malik nodded. Yes, but it wasn't just you. He walked slowly around the table, his voice soft, deliberate, the kind of tone that forces people to listen. When I bought this dealership, I wanted to create a place where every customer felt respected, where people were treated by how they behaved, not by how they looked. Because every person who walks through those doors represents opportunity, not just for a sale, but for your own character. He stopped near the window, sunlight outlining his figure. But today, I learned that respect here has a price tag. One of the younger salesmen spoke up nervously. Sir, it's not like that. We just try to prioritize clients who can actually buy. Malik turned toward him, not angry, just honest. And how do you know who can actually buy? The man hesitated. You can usually tell. By what? Malik pressed. By shoes? By skin? By how someone says hello. The salesman said nothing. The room went still again. Malik exhaled softly. That's the oldest mistake in business and in life. Thinking you can see a person's value before they open their mouth. He walked back to the table and leaned forward slightly. When I was younger, I used to come to showrooms just like this. I'd get the same looks, the same tone, so I promised myself, if I ever owned one, it would never happen again. He straightened. Looks like I broke that promise today. Carla's voice cracked. Mr. Johnson, please, if I could just explain. He shook his head gently. You already did, and I believe you. You judged me without meaning to, but intent doesn't erase impact. The words hung in the air like truth carved in glass. A quiet knock came from the door. The operations director, a tall, silver-haired man named Trevor, stepped inside, uncertain. Everything all right in here? Malik smiled faintly. It will be. Trevor nodded once and stayed by the door. Malik looked back at his staff. Here's what's going to happen. Starting next week, every employee, including management, will complete our new outreach training. Real customer empathy. Real accountability. He paused. And anyone who thinks that's beneath them may leave now. No one moved. Good, Malik said quietly. Then maybe this place still has a chance. He turned to Carla. I'm not firing you. Her head jerked up, eyes wide. I'm promoting you, he said. You're going to lead that training. She blinked, stunned. Sir, after how I treated you. That's exactly why, Malik replied. You understand the mistake better than anyone else here. And if you can teach this team to recognize it, you'll save this business more than any ad campaign ever could. Her eyes filled, voice trembling. I won't let you down. I know, Malik said simply. The mood in the room shifted. Guilt bending slowly into respect. Malik's voice softened as he spoke again. You all forgot something today. This place doesn't sell cars. It sells trust. Every handshake, every question, every smile. That's what people remember long after they leave. He looked at each of them in turn. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be human. The employees nodded quietly. Then, unexpectedly, Malik smiled. All right, let's start over. Everyone back to work, and this time, try seeing people, not profiles. As they left the room, the tension began to ease. Carla lingered near the door, gripping her clipboard. Mr. Johnson, she said softly. Thank you for giving me another chance. He looked at her, sincere. Everyone deserves one, including me. She smiled a little shakily. For what it's worth, I'll never forget today. Good, Malik said. Neither will I. When the room emptied, Trevor approached Malik quietly. That was impressive. Malik chuckled. It wasn't about being impressive. It was about being seen. Trevor studied him. You really came in here just to test them? Malik nodded. I needed to know if the people representing my name understood what respect really means. Trevor smiled. And now you do. Now I do, Malik echoed. They both looked through the glass at the showroom floor. At the same staff, now greeting a customer in worn clothes, smiling genuinely this time. For the first time since he bought Empire Motors, Malik felt proud, not of the cars, not of the profits, but of the lesson. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself. Sometimes you have to be mistaken for less. to remind people what more looks like. A week had passed since Malik's unannounced visit, but the ripple hadn't stopped. Inside the dealership, everything looked the same. The same polished floors, the same glossy show cars gleaming under white lights, yet the energy was different. There was respect now. Quiet, deliberate, careful respect. Carla no longer barked orders. She listened. Salesmen no longer laughed behind backs. They greeted customers with patience. And Malik, though unseen most days, had changed everything by simply walking through the front door as a nobody. But stories like that never stay hidden for long. One afternoon, a customer who had witnessed the incident posted about it on social media. A man in a hoodie walked into Empire Motors. Staff treated him like he didn't belong. Turns out, he owned the place. The post spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, thousands of people had shared it. Comment sections overflowed with outrage, awe, and praise. Some wrote, "Finally, a boss who teaches real lessons." Others wrote, "That staff deserves to be humbled." By the next morning, a news van was parked outside the dealership. When Malik arrived, Trevor, the operations director, met him at the door. "You're trending, sir," he said dryly. #HoodieBoss, #3 on social media. Malik sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's not exactly the legacy I was going for." Trevor smirked. "Could have been worse. They could have called you angry owner." Malik chuckled. "Fair." But behind that faint humor, he felt uneasy. He hadn't wanted attention. He'd wanted change. And now the entire city was watching. Inside, reporters waited. Cameras ready, a young journalist stepped forward, microphone trembling slightly. "Mr. Johnson, is it true you disguised yourself to test your staff?" Malik raised a hand politely. "Let's call it a visit, not a disguise." "Why do that at all?" she asked. "Some people think it was manipulative." He smiled. Not defensive, just understanding. "Maybe it was," he admitted. "But sometimes you don't see truth unless you walk in through the wrong door." Another reporter asked, "What did you learn?" Malik's tone softened. "That people judge faster than they listen. And that sometimes all it takes is 5 seconds of kindness to change someone's life. Or ruin their day." The room went silent. He didn't sound like a businessman. He sounded like a teacher. "Are you firing anyone?" Someone called out. "No," Malik said firmly. "I don't fire people for failing a test they didn't know they were taking. I help them pass it next time." The reporters exchanged glances. It wasn't the headline they expected. But it was the truth. That night, Malik sat in his office, staring out the window. The city lights glowed like constellations below. His reflection hovered faintly in the glass. The same face, but changed somehow. He'd built an empire from logic and ambition. Now he was learning the cost of humanity. Carla knocked softly and stepped inside. She looked nervous but grateful. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "I just wanted to thank you again for not giving up on me." He turned toward her, smiling. "You're doing good work, Carla. I noticed the new client surveys." She nodded. "The staff's trying harder. We had a family come in today. They were nervous. First time buying a car. I remembered what you said." "What's that?" Malik asked. "That people don't come here for the car. They come here for trust." Malik's eyes softened. "You remembered." "I did," she said. "And it worked. They bought the car, not because we sold it, but because they felt seen." He chuckled quietly. "Sounds like I should promote you again." Carla laughed nervously, shaking her head. "I think I'm exactly where I need to be." As she left, Malik's phone buzzed with a call. It was his friend Marcus, the head of his investment firm. "Brother, you just turned your dealership into a PR legend," Marcus said. "You're everywhere. Late-night shows, morning news, podcasts. Everyone's talking about you." "I didn't want this to be about me," Malik said, tiredly. "It was supposed to be a reminder, not a movement." "Sometimes reminders turn into movements," Marcus replied. "You didn't start a scandal. You started a standard." Malik leaned back, looking at the city again. "Then I guess the hard part is keeping that standard alive." "You will," Marcus said confidently. "You always do." When the call ended, Malik sat in silence. The sound of cars on the distant freeway hummed like white noise beneath his thoughts. The next day, Empire Motors was busier than ever. Not because people wanted to buy cars, but because they wanted to see him. Customers arrived in all forms. Business people, teachers, delivery drivers, single mothers, all curious about the man who wore a hoodie into his own showroom. Malik made sure he greeted every one of them. Not with fame, not with authority, with kindness. He shook hands, listened, asked questions, and every time someone said, "I can't believe you own this place," he'd laugh and answer, "I couldn't believe it either at first." The staff watched him, learning without lectures. Kindness, they realized, wasn't weakness. It was a kind of wealth none of them had been taught to measure. Later that afternoon, Malik called a quick meeting. The team gathered, still buzzing from the busy day. "Look," he said, "I know things have been wild lately. Cameras, headlines, hashtags. But I want you all to remember something. None of this matters if we don't keep living the lesson." He looked around at each face. Carla, the young salesman, the assistants, all listening now. "I'd rather have a small, honest business than a big, empty one built on ego. We're not just selling cars, we're shaping moments. Every person who walks in here deserves the same dignity we'd want for ourselves." He paused, then added with a smile, "And for the record, next time I walk in wearing a hoodie, I expect better service." Laughter filled the room, warm, real, human. Carla raised her hand. "Does this mean we'll start casual Fridays?" Malik grinned. "Only if you teach everyone how to make apologies sound that funny." The room erupted again. And just like that, tension became teamwork. As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Malik walked out to the lot. The cars gleamed under golden light. He thought about the boy he once was, the one who'd been turned away, overlooked, dismissed. If only that boy could see him now, not because he owned the cars, but because he'd finally learned what true ownership meant. Owning who you are, no matter who's watching. Preston returned to the community center the next day, though no one had told him he had to. No one drove him. No one watched him go. He simply woke, dressed, and went. Not out of duty, not yet out of understanding, but something in him had shifted, quiet and small, like the first crack in a wall. The morning air was cool and gentle. The building looked the same, weathered but alive. Children's voices floated from behind the main room. The sound was light, untouched, hopeful. He had never noticed how powerful children's laughter was until now. Ms. Rory was waiting inside, sorting papers at a folding table. She looked up when he entered. "You came back," she said. Preston shrugged. "I said I would." She didn't praise him. She didn't smile. She didn't act impressed. She simply said, "Good. Let's keep going." And somehow, that meant more than any praise could have. The day's task was simple: repainting the center's side wall. The paint had peeled over the years, cracked under weather and time. Kids had drawn on it, scraped it. leaned against it. It was the kind of wall that held memories, but was tired. Preston rolled up his sleeves, dipped a roller into paint, and made the first stroke. The colors spread smooth and bright. There was something peaceful in the rhythm. Long sweeps, even pressure, steady hands. It demanded patience, stillness, focus. Halfway down the wall, he noticed someone watching from the sidewalk. Judge Drayden. Not in her robe, not in authority. In plain clothes, jeans, a soft blue blouse, hair tied back loosely. She looked almost different, almost ordinary. She approached him slowly. "I see you've started," she said. Preston stepped back, unsure. "Yes, ma'am." She observed the wall, colors layered on colors, then spoke carefully. "Your father arranged this, didn't he?" Preston nodded. The judge's eyes softened, not with sympathy, but with understanding. "The law can punish," she said, "but punishment alone doesn't change a person. Humility does. Time does. Work does." Preston didn't know what to say. She continued, "I didn't remove privilege from you. It was never mine to remove. You came here today because you made a choice. She came to see." Preston nodded slowly. He began painting again. By noon, laughter filled the playground. Two little boys ran back and forth with paper airplanes. A girl braided another's hair into uneven pigtails. A group of older kids played soccer barefoot. Preston watched them. Not as background noise, but really watched. Their joy wasn't loud. It was pure. He realized something. These kids didn't know who he was. Not his last name. Not his father's wealth. Not his past actions. They only saw the man standing in front of them. A boy about 10 approached, holding a scraped knee. "It stings," the boy said, voice tremoring. Preston had never comforted a hurt child before, so he did what felt natural. He knelt. He looked the boy in the eyes. "Let's fix it," he said. He cleaned the wound, not roughly, not quickly, carefully, patiently. The boy sniffed, then whispered, "Thank you." 2 words, simple, but they hit Preston like a storm. No one had ever thanked him for kindness before. Most of his life, people thanked him for access, money, privilege, opportunity. Not care. Not presence. Not heart. He didn't say anything in return. He didn't need to. The silence carried meaning. Later, in the afternoon, he sat outside with Miss Rory. They shared cold water in plastic cups as the sun dipped low. She didn't speak at first. Then, "Change doesn't happen when you realize you did something wrong," she said. "Change happens when you realize who else was affected." Preston thought of the officer he kicked, the neighbors who had seen him, his parents, not their reputation, but their humanity. The child today, himself. "I think I'm starting to understand," Preston said. Rory nodded. "Understanding is not the end," she replied. "It's the beginning." When Preston arrived home that evening, his father was waiting in the study. The same room of polished wood, leather chairs, and old whiskey. "How was it?" Elias asked. Preston hesitated. "It was good," he said slowly. "Hard, but good." Elias paused in the middle of pouring himself a drink. "Good?" he repeated, not dismissive, but confused. Preston nodded. "I think it's helping." His father studied him, not proud, not angry, just surprised, as though Preston had spoken a language he had not taught him. Elias finally set the glass down. "Remember this," he said. "People respect the man who can stand without leaning on his name." Preston exhaled. "I think I want to learn how," Elias nodded, but not in approval, in permission. Perhaps for the first time in their lives, father and son were on the same side of something real. That night, Preston lay awake, not with anxiety, not guilt, something different. Peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because something inside him was finally beginning to grow. Slow, quiet, patient, real. That night, for the first time in his life, Preston Vale did not fall asleep thinking about himself. He fell asleep thinking about the world around him, and how he wanted to fit inside it, not above it. The story that made Malik Johnson a hero was also the story that made him a target. For weeks after he walked away from the investor board, headlines hailed him as the man who chose people over profit. But in business, goodwill doesn't last long. Not when competitors smell opportunity. By the end of that month, Malik's name was on every news ticker, not as a role model, but as a question mark. Inside his office, one morning, Carla placed a folder on his desk, her hands trembling slightly. "You should see this," she said. Malik looked up from his coffee. "What's going on?" "It's a new press release," she said quietly, "from Zenith Auto Group." He frowned and flipped it open. The headline read, "Empire Motors, former owner under investigation for mismanagement and fraud." Silence filled the room. The hum of the air conditioner felt louder than usual. Then Malik sighed, calm but tired. "They're scared." "Of what?" Carla asked. He looked at her, eyes sharp but steady. "Of what happens when people realize compassion can be more powerful than money." That, you find that protesters had gathered, some holding supportive signs, others holding accusations. The same public that once cheered him now debated his integrity. Some said he was genuine. Others said he'd played the world for sympathy. Trevor entered with his tablet in hand. "Social media's tearing itself apart," he reported. "Half of them defending you, half demanding proof." Malik rubbed his temple. "And the investors?" "They've frozen your remaining accounts, pending review," Trevor replied grimly. "And Zenith bought ad time to run a corrective campaign." Malik almost laughed. "Corrective? What are they selling? Decency in a bottle?" Trevor cracked a faint smile. "If they could, they'd trademark it." Later that afternoon, Malik called Marcus. His old friend's voice was heavy. "Malik, they're coming hard. The board's trying to ruin your credibility. They say you staged the entire hoodie incident for attention." Malik leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "And do you believe that?" Marcus hesitated. "I know you, brother. You don't play games. But they've got lawyers, media deals, politicians. This isn't about truth anymore." Malik's jaw tightened. "Then it's about survival." Marcus sighed. "You could fight this legally, or you could disappear for a while until it blows over." "Disappear?" Malik repeated, his voice calm but cutting. "They want me to vanish because I embarrassed their greed. If I hide, they win." Marcus went quiet. "Then what's your move?" Malik looked out the window at the setting sun. "I'm not going to fight their lies," he said slowly. "I'm going to show the truth." That night, Malik recorded a video in his office. No script, no lights, just honesty. He sat at his desk, sleeves rolled, eyes tired but clear. When the camera began recording, he spoke softly. "I never pretended to be anyone. I walked into my business the way thousands of people walk into places every day, judged before they speak. That experience wasn't a stunt. It was a reality check. The truth is, I've made mistakes, but deception isn't one of them. I believe in earning trust, not demanding it." If that makes me naive, so be it. But I'll never apologize for believing that decency still matters. He paused for a moment, then finished quietly. P.I.S. B as in boy. To those who support me. Thank you. To those who doubt me. Keep watching. The truth has a habit of showing up uninvited. He uploaded the video and closed his laptop. Within hours, the internet exploded again. But this time, the tone was different. People began digging into Zenith Auto Group's past, and what they found changed everything. Former employees spoke up about toxic management, discrimination, and corruption. Whistleblowers confirmed that Zenith had pushed the false allegations against Malik to bury their own scandal. News outlets reversed course. The next morning's headlines read, "Zenith caught in lies, Malik Johnson's integrity restored." Carla burst into Malik's office, breathless with relief. "You did it. It's all over the news. You've been cleared." Malik smiled faintly, though his eyes still looked tired. "I didn't do anything. Truth did." Trevor entered behind her, holding a printout. "And there's more. The city council just reached out. They want you to lead a community initiative. Public trust, ethics in business, mentorship programs. You're officially a local hero again." Malik chuckled quietly. "Hero's a big word for a man who just told the truth." Carla grinned. "Then maybe the world needs more of those." That evening, Malik stood outside the dealership, watching the sunset paint the glass in gold. The protests were gone. The noise was gone. In their place, peace, fragile but real. A young man approached shyly, holding a folder. "Mr. Johnson?" Malik turned, smiling. "That's me." I wanted to thank you," the young man stammered. "My dad told me about what you did. He said you made people believe again, that good business doesn't mean bad morals." Malik smiled warmly. "What's your name?" "Derek," he said. "I just graduated. I want to work for someone like you one day." Malik shook his hand firmly. "Then don't wait for someone like me, Derek. Be that someone." The young man grinned, inspired, and walked away. Later, Carla joined Malik outside, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You know," she said, handing him one, "you could have destroyed them with lawyers, but you didn't." He took a sip, smiling. "Fighting with anger only makes you look like your enemies. Sometimes silence is the sharpest truth." She looked at him thoughtfully. "So, what now?" Malik gazed out at the city skyline, glowing in the dusk. "Now, we build something that lasts, not a brand, not a campaign, a culture." Carla smiled. "For people, not profit." "Exactly," Malik said softly. "And this time, no investors to ruin it." As the last rays of light faded, Malik whispered to himself, a reminder, not for the world, but for his own heart. "You can take my money, but you can't touch my message." The chaos had passed, but what remained was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the world seems to hold its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. Malik Johnson stood on the edge of his newly repurchased dealership lot, now stripped of branding. The old Empire Motors logo had been taken down weeks ago. The sign that once screamed luxury was now an empty metal frame, waiting for a new name. He wasn't thinking about profit, he was thinking about purpose. Carla walked up beside him, holding a cup of coffee. "Feels weird seeing it blank, doesn't it?" Malik smiled faintly. "Weird, yes, but also honest. Clean slates are rare in life." "So what are you going to call it?" she asked. He looked out across the lot where sunlight glinted off rows of cars. "Something that reminds people they matter," he said softly. "Something human." Carla grinned. "How about Respect Motors?" Malik chuckled, tempting, but no slogans this time, just truth. By the end of the week, The new name was revealed, the People's Garage. No marble pillars, no luxury fonts. Just a simple wooden sign with bold carved letters. Beneath it, a tagline read, "Everyone deserves to be seen." Within days, people started talking again. Not because of hype, but because of heart. The grand reopening was modest, but heartfelt. Families came with children, curious about the man who turned a scandal into a stand. Former employees who had once laughed behind Malik's back returned, humbler now, asking for work. And he hired them, every one of them. "Forgiveness isn't weakness," he told Trevor quietly. "It's just proof that people can grow." Trevor nodded. "And you're giving them a chance to prove it." Inside the new showroom, Malik had replaced the wall of luxury car posters with something different. Framed photographs of customers, real people. Smiling faces, families, workers, veterans, students. Each photo had a small brass plate underneath it, engraved with one simple question: did they feel respected? The staff understood the message. Every deal, every handshake, every word now had weight. Carla, now officially the head of customer relations, stood proudly in her new uniform. "You know, this feels like something more than a dealership," she said. "Feels like a movement." Malik smiled. Maybe that's what business should have been all along. Within a month, the People's Garage became a local symbol of fairness. There were no VIP lounges, no priority lines, no platinum clients. Everyone got the same service, the same respect. A retired teacher could walk in and get the same attention as a millionaire. And every staff member had one rule: never judge a story you haven't heard. Word spread faster than advertising ever could. Local news stations featured them again, not for controversy this time, but for community. One segment showed Malik standing beside a young woman, handing her the keys to a used car. "She's the first graduate of our new program," he told the reporter. "Single parents who need reliable transportation to get back on their feet. No credit checks, no pity. Just partnership." The clip went viral overnight, but Malik didn't care about views anymore. He cared about the faces behind the numbers. One evening, after closing, Malik sat in the quiet showroom. The cars gleamed softly in the dim light, but his eyes were fixed on the photo wall. Carla joined him with 2 mugs of tea. "You've built something incredible," she said. Malik shook his head gently. "We did. Every mistake, every lesson, every hard day led here." Carla nodded, sitting beside him. "Do you ever think about the old investors, the ones who tried to bury you?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but not with anger. They taught me that you can't measure worth with numbers. They forced me to prove that kindness can build something just as strong." Carla raised her mug. "To kindness, then." Malik clinked his against hers. "And to second chances." Later that night, Malik walked outside into the cool air. The sky stretched endlessly above, painted in deep blue and gold. Across the street, a small group of teenagers hung around, whispering. One of them, a lanky boy with messy hair, stepped forward nervously. "Hey, Mr. Johnson?" Malik turned, smiling. "Yeah?" The boy swallowed. "Is it true you used to get treated bad here before you owned it?" Malik nodded. "That's true." The boy looked down. "Happens to me all the time. People look at me like I'm trouble before I even say a word." Malik walked over, his tone gentle. "What's your name?" "Eli." "Well, Eli," he said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You can't control how people see you, but you can control what you stand for when they're wrong about you." The boy nodded slowly. "So, what did you do when it happened to you?" Malik smiled softly. "I built a place where it couldn't happen again." Eli's eyes widened. You think I could work here someday? Malik grinned. I think that's exactly why you're standing here. The boy's face lit up, and he ran off to tell his friends. Malik watched him go, a quiet pride glowing behind his eyes. A few days later, Trevor found Malik in his office, sketching plans. You're expanding already? Malik nodded. Not with more cars, with more chances. I'm opening 2 new branches in underprivileged areas. Same model, same rules, people first. Trevor laughed. You're going to put half the industry out of business. Malik smiled. No. I'm going to remind them what business is for. By the end of that month, something remarkable happened. A letter arrived from one of Malik's old investors, Ms. Barlow, the same woman who once accused him of being too sentimental. He opened it slowly. The message was brief, handwritten in careful ink. Mr. Johnson, I visited your new dealership anonymously last week. I was treated better than I have been in years. I understand now what you meant about value. Consider me one of your customers. Malik stared at the letter for a long time before smiling. Looks like we're changing minds after all, he murmured. That evening, as the sun dipped low and golden rays filled the showroom, Malik stood by the entrance, watching families drive off in their new cars. Laughter echoed in the parking lot, and the faint smell of warm asphalt filled the air. He looked up at the wooden sign above the doors, the People's Garage. It wasn't just a name anymore. It was a promise. He whispered quietly, almost to himself. They tried to destroy me with lies. I rebuilt with truth. And with that, he locked up for the night, ready for whatever came next. The world has a way of remembering stories that carry truth in their bones. Months had passed since Malik Johnson reopened his dealership under a new name, the People's Garage, and what started as a quiet act of redemption had become something much larger. Local news turned into national coverage. National coverage became global recognition. And soon, Malik's story, the man who rebuilt his business on respect, began inspiring others far beyond the city limits. One morning, Malik sat at his modest desk as a pile of letters waited beside his coffee cup. Carla stood near the window, scrolling through her tablet. You're going to want to see this, she said with a smile. Looks like you're not just running a dealership anymore. Malik glanced up, amused. Oh, what am I running now? She turned the screen toward him, a video playing from a local school across town. Children stood in a gymnasium under a banner that read, Respect is free, inspired by the People's Garage. Malik watched, speechless, as a teacher handed a student a small certificate labeled Kindness Award. The student, a shy little boy in a green sweater, looked into the camera and said softly, Mr. Johnson said, everyone deserves to be seen. So I saw someone today. Carla laughed gently. You've gone from selling cars to teaching morals. Malik leaned back in his chair, his eyes soft. Then maybe I'm finally selling something worth buying. Later that week, a call came in from a well-known entrepreneur in New York. Ethan Cole, a billionaire who had once publicly mocked Malik's story as feel-good fluff. Now, Ethan wanted to partner. Malik met him in person at a sleek rooftop cafe overlooking the skyline. The contrast between them couldn't have been sharper. Malik in his plain dark jacket, Ethan in a designer suit that gleamed under the morning sun. Mr. Johnson, Ethan began, offering a hand. You've done something no PR team could buy. You turned humility into brand equity. I want in. Malik smiled politely. You mean you want to own it? Ethan chuckled, leaning back. I want to franchise the People's Garage. Global rollout. Every country, every city. We can take your name worldwide. Malik stirred his coffee, slowly. his tone even. And who owns it after that? You, of course, Ethan said, smiling. With us helping you manage it. Malik looked him straight in the eye. Respect doesn't need management. It needs meaning. Ethan's smile faltered. You're turning down billions? Malik's voice stayed calm. I already learned what money can't buy. I'm not about to forget. He stood, slipping a small business card across the table. If you ever want to learn, instead of buy, come by the shop. Then he walked away, leaving Ethan staring, speechless. Back home, the People's Garage kept growing. Not through investors, but through imitation. Across the country, small businesses began adopting Malik's philosophy. Cafes started respect hours, where customers could pay it forward anonymously. Barbershops displayed signs that read, "Every person who walks in deserves a kind word." Malik's idea had become a blueprint for human decency. Carla stood in his office one evening, holding another envelope. From London this time, she said. Malik opened it, smiling as he read, "We turned an abandoned lot into a community auto shop. We call it the Garage of Dignity. Thank you for showing us what business could mean." He looked up. London? That's across the ocean. Carla grinned. You've gone international, boss. Malik chuckled quietly. Guess respect travels faster than profit ever could. But not everyone was thrilled by his success. Some corporations felt threatened, especially Zenith Auto Group, the same company that once tried to destroy him. Late one night, Malik received a legal notice. Cease and desist the use of slogan and business model that imitates Zenith's community outreach initiative. Malik was invited to speak at a business ethics conference in Washington, D.C., a massive event filled with executives, students, and media crews. He stepped on stage in his usual simple attire. No suit, no notes, no teleprompter. The crowd quieted as he began to speak. A year ago, I was mistaken for someone who didn't belong. I didn't plan to prove anyone wrong. I just wanted to show what right could look like. Today, I stand here not as a CEO, but as a reminder. Titles fade. Companies fall. But how we treat each other, that lasts longer than any logo. He paused, scanning the faces in the audience. Some teary, some smiling. Respect doesn't need a dress code. It doesn't care what you drive or what you earn. It's not a transaction. It's a choice. And if we can build businesses that choose it, we might finally build a world that lives by it. The entire hall rose to their feet in thunderous applause. That evening, Malik sat alone in his hotel room, gazing at the city lights through the window. His phone buzzed with hundreds of notifications. Congratulations, partnership offers, interview requests. He ignored them all. Instead, he opened one unread message from an unknown number. It read, "You don't know me. I was one of the guards who watched you get turned away that first day. I quit after that. Now I run a youth program to teach kids respect and patience. I just wanted to say, you changed my life." Malik exhaled softly, eyes glistening. "That's the only return I ever wanted," he whispered. Months later, the People's Garage Foundation was officially established, not to sell cars, but to fund mentorship programs for underprivileged youth. Eli, the young boy who'd once asked to work there, now stood proudly at Malik's side, wearing a mechanic's uniform with his name embroidered on it. Parla smiled proudly as she handed Malik a small plaque the community had made. It read, "For proving that respect is stronger than revenge." Malik held it up, his voice quiet but firm. "We didn't just build a garage. We built a mirror. A place where people could see their worth. And maybe for the first time, believe it." That night, as the sun sank behind the horizon, Malik walked out to the front lot. The wooden sign still stood tall, glowing softly in the fading light. The People's Garage. Everyone deserves to be seen. He whispered to himself with a smile. It started with a mistake. It ended with a movement. Then he turned off the lights, locked the doors, and walked away. Not as a businessman, but as a legacy. Sometimes the greatest empires aren't built on money. They're built on respect. If you believe in second chances and the power of truth, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Because in the end, kindness always wins.